Hello and welcome to Medicine Across Borders,
where we explore the global tapestry of healthcare
and challenges shaping healthcare systems worldwide.
Share your thoughts and rate us on our social platforms to help us continue bringing you content on global healthcare.
Good evening, Rita.
Good evening.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. So let me just introduce myself. I'm Savitran Eshwar. I'm in the fourth year MD. I'm in Medical University of Lublin, and today we're going to discuss some things about the Canadian residency program. How does it work? What are the things? Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. So just to introduce myself as well, my name's Rita Malouf. I recently graduated from Poznan University of Medical Sciences in June of 2023, and I'm currently now completing the English stage program at the same university.
Wow, that's
and
great.
I've just matched into Canada as well. Yeah.
Oh yes, perfect. Yeah, congratulations on that. I would like to kickstart our podcast today with the basic question of, can you share a bit about your background and what inspired you to pursue a career in medicine? How did it all begin?
I like that question. I prepped for it probably during medical school interviews, but just pretty much medical school. I feel like from when I was from a young age, I always kind of knew I wanted medicine. I don't really have like a special story or something that really kind of motivated me or made me want medicine. It was just something that I always kind of thought of, and it just always made sense to me. And looking back now, there's no regrets. There's nothing that I wish I had done instead. There's not a career path that I wish I could have taken. I cannot see myself doing anything other than medicine. So I'm very happy with the decision that I made to study medicine. Yeah.
So did you ever come across with any doctor, or did you see your sibling, or what exactly inspired you? What was the inspiration? Who was the inspiration?
Inspiration would have been my sisters. They were both in medicine. I get, and they're both my older sisters. So I guess I was pretty or slightly, I guess, exposed to the medical life in general. Apart from my sisters, my family, there aren't really many doctors, so it's not full exposure. But my sisters were both, and I guess there are people that are, of course, that I've always looked up to. And so maybe that's why I always really saw myself in medicine. That could have been why as well.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. And okay, what factors influenced your decision to apply for residency in Canada? Why Canada?
Because I think it's to me it's the closest place for home. That's kind of why Canada. I lived there for a few years, and I have family there. It's a great place that I think it's a great residency program, very good teaching program, and it's somewhere that I can see myself settling down and I think really enjoying and appreciating it. So my plan was always, from when I first started medical school, I always kind of wanted to go to Canada to do my training program. It was either Canada or the States. And then just kind of slowly as medical school went on, Canada just somehow found its way over.
Wow, okay. Seems like a very planned and organized way. Was it really like that, or did it all come across?
No, not at all.
Well? Okay.
Not at all. I think it's always hard. Some people have started, I guess I started, maybe I wasn't as young as, I was 19 years old. And I think some people have been able to do it. They've had a goal since the beginning. And I think that's awesome. And they've been able to meet that goal. But I don't know if I was younger, I still wasn't sure what exactly that I wanted, but it definitely wasn't always set and it wasn't always kind of exactly how the plan was. At one point I kind of mediated, I shifted over to the States. And then I did some electives in the States and I wasn't so sure after. And then I wrote my Canadian board exams and it just kind of like worked out, and I felt that I just kind of let it go with the flow, and I decided I'm like, okay, like now I can apply to Canada this year and see how it's going to go. And at one point towards the end of medical school, I think it's really important for you to kind of just pick a country and focus on it, because I feel like when we're studying abroad, like we have a lot of options and it can become very overwhelming. So I found towards the end, like it was incredibly overwhelming, like looking at all the requirements for each of the countries and trying to meet all the requirements. So I did really try in my last year to just pick a country and like stick with it. And like hopefully it works out. And if not, like that's okay. You can move on to the next, or like keep trying as well, of course.
Okay. I
Yeah.
think that's a big relief because a lot of students, they are pretty anxious from the fourth year onwards on how
Yeah.
is this all going to end, because we all get into this long path of medicine, but we don't know where it's going to lead us to, what's going to happen, what's the next step, where am I going to go? So it's a big question for, I think, most of the students out there, including me. So thank you for that. And
Yeah.
that brings up to the next
It's,
question.
yeah.
Yeah. Go
I was
on.
just gonna say it's very overwhelming, and something that I would definitely tell any lower years is just to like take your time and just kind of think about where you see yourself. And it's okay if you don't know yet. Like I didn't know until fifth, sixth year. I wasn't sure even on the country or specialty or anything, and to just not focus on like if like someone else knows exactly where they want to go and what specialty they want, and if they've studied for all their exams and everything. It's like everyone has their own pace, and it's okay if like you're not behind if someone else has done X, Y, and Z. Like it's okay, and like you have your time and like you have your own pace, and like it'll be okay at the end. Like you will figure it out.
Perfect. Okay. And
Yeah.
just with what you just said, I have a question in my mind, which is you said that you can take your own pace and you are not sure about your specialty. So,
Mm-hmm.
did you ever, during the rotations, like in the clinical years, have inclination towards one specialty? Did you ever uh, think or decide on, okay, I'm gonna be this specialist, or were you always
Yeah.
open?
I've always actually been quite open to uh what I never kind of ever closed any specialties off the table. I think, except for maybe surgeries, something is I've never really been interested in is surgery, maybe. But apart from that,
Mm-hmm.
like family, internal medicine, even obstetrics and gynecology, I remember that course really took me by surprise. I never thought I would that it was a course that like I would really like until I started having my rotations and I was studying for OB-GYN, and I actually loved it. I thought it was one of like an amazing specialty, and the rotations in the university were so well organized, and they were amazing, and the doctors were also helpful, and like it was very hands-on. So really like specialty wise, I think it jumps like back and forth. I started to do some electives during my final year, and that also further solidified like different specialties that like I could be interested in and that I really liked as well.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So that takes us to the next question, which is, how did you research and evaluate the Canadian medical system before making this decision?
I think having lived in Canada before, and like knowing a lot about the programs itself, it's very well known, and it's a good program in general in Canada. Like all the doctors are very well qualified, and I was really just looking for a strong program to help me kind of like grow as a doctor. Like, I feel like at the moment as a graduate, like we're starting off as an intern, like we're really at the bottom, and like there's still so much to learn and grow. And most of my research just came from like the best programs, what each of the programs kind of will provide for me. I really wanted a very well-rounded kind of program. So like within the specialty that I ended up choosing is family medicine. So while picking like which university I wanted to go to, I really tried to research a lot about each of the programs and what they're going to offer me in the next 2 to 3 years, and what I can do. And I think that's something that I would really recommend for people to do. Most people that I've asked in the
Mm-hmm.
past, they just said that, oh, like I saw this city and I thought, oh, it might be fun. But I think because I was familiar with Canada, I kind of wanted to take it a step further because all the cities sounded awesome. So I was like, well, let me see like what kind of program, like where do I where do I feel like I'm going to grow the best, and that's kind of how I started to do my selection afterwards.
Perfect. Okay. I think one more thing you could add on this is where exactly can we get more information if we are inclined towards Canada? Like if I'm interested in looking up for my residency in Canada, is there online sources or websites or any authentic websites, platforms where I can get information on the more information on the residency? Probably after this podcast, many would be interested in Canadian residency programs. So where can they look up?
I would say probably on their websites. I think it's called mcc.ca. So it's mwc.ca. And I think from there I don't know if they really discuss the programs itself, but there's program descriptions and there's timelines, but there's also they'll discuss like the exams and kind of what the requirements are. So there's 2 board exams that you have to write in order to be eligible to apply to Canada as an international medical graduate. And so in the mcc.ca website, they'll discuss it. There's also the CARMS website for CARMS. I can't remember the actual hyphen for the full link. But generally, if you type in CARMS on Safari or Chrome or whatever, that should be one of the first websites to pop up, should be the website.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. So that's great. Thank you for that. And now we go on to the application process. I have 1 or 2 questions on that. Can you walk us through the steps you took to apply for residency in Canada?
Of course. So the first thing was probably the medical exam. So there's 2 medical board exams you have to write. One is called the MCC QE1, and the other is called the NAC OSCE exam. So the first one is pretty much, it's a mix of a multiple choice exam and a short answer one. It's about 8 or 9 hours long, but it's very convenient because you can actually do it from the comfort of your own home, which is nice. The other one is an OSCE, which you have to do from Canada. And they'll arrange for which specific universities you're eligible to kind of write the OSCE in. And then from there, you can start with the application process. I think it started, all the dates usually differ from year to year, but basically CARMS, you could start to apply for the match. I think it was from October for this year. And so you just have to start with submitting some of your documents, some transcripts, some maybe your medical degree if you've graduated. If not, then of course, you don't have to submit that yet, but your transcripts are important, and you kind of just have to start gathering up all the documents. Another requirement that some of the universities ask, that a lot of people, some people can get away with it. It depends on the specific university requirements. However, most of us had to write an English proficiency exam. You could get away with it if you could show on the school director website. There's something on the Canadian website, and if your school is a part of it, then as long as you show a screenshot of that to the CARMS application to show that
World Medical Directory?
Yes, that's it. Thank you for that.
Okay.
So as long as you show that it's in English or something, then you don't have to you just need to show proof that your medical school was done in English, and then you don't have to write the English proficiency exam. However, it can get a bit complicated, and only some schools accept that. Other schools still prefer an English proficiency exam, so you can write the OET or the TOEFL or the IELTS exam. It was all very open, and I think their request might have been just a 7, an average of a 7 for the IELTS score. After that, the program descriptions open up and you can start applying for the programs. So let's see what else there is. You can start applying for the programs and continue kind of submitting all the stuff. Sometimes they wanted photos or all the documents. You really have to look through the program descriptions of each one to make sure that you have all the requirements that they need, all the documents that they've asked for. If you're applying to some rural programs, which I did, they have something called a rural addendum. And I didn't realize this until probably 2 or 3 days before the deadline, that they requested a rural addendum, which is just, it was something small. It was just max of 250 words. And it's basically kind of describing why you would want to work in a family medicine program in a rural area. So it's just talking about your passion for family medicine and things like that. And then from there, like you just submit your application and you hope for the best.
Okay. So, what resources did you find most helpful during the process of application, like during the application process? What were the materials you went back to, the resources
In
which were helpful?
terms of applying, you mean like for applications or for exams?
Yeah, for the application, yes. No, the application, like you just mentioned that we have to give like a 250 word of why this particular specialty or
Mhm.
department for the
Yes.
residency. Similarly, like is there any resources you used or you had to acquire to fill up with that application process or to, to meet the application
It's
requirements?
yeah. So to meet the requirements, so the resource it was from the program descriptions, and you can find that on the CARM's website as well. Like they'll have the timeline, the program descriptions. They have a lot of different information on it, and from there there's going to be a link, and like you can see the university and the specific program that you're looking into. So what I applied to was for family medicine. So let's say I was looking into family medicine in Ontario. And so I would like look in to see and make sure that I have all the documents and all the requirements that were correct or not. However, within Ontario, so each of the schools, if you had to click on each of the individual programs, so even if it's within Western University, let's say, there was like 5 programs within that university. So let's say 2 of those were a rural family medicine program, and those would have an additional requirement. That's something that I didn't notice until like the last minute, and I went into panic mode. So I would definitely recommend for students to just like make sure they read everything, because like there are some stuff that can like slip up. But in the end, like it was fine. Like it was just a few questions that you had to answer. That was probably something you already discussed in your personal statements. That you could probably like still just like use some of the information and like make it work. So it's still not the end of the world. So don't panic if that happens to you. So that was the main website I think that I used most of my information from, like from the CARMs, but also past graduates from my university who matched in Canada. They were so kind and so helpful, and like they really understood the stress that I, along with like others, of course, who were applying, like they were very helpful, and I'm super grateful for like anyone who put up with all my questions and my anxiety during this process.
That's great. Sounds really nice. And I think you are also doing the same to a lot of students who are going to listen to this podcast. You're helping them in a great way. And thank you so much for taking us through the application process. And now we'll move into the preparation, or like how did you prepare for the Canadian residency matching service process? How exactly did you go through that?
I think what I put the most amount of kind of concentration on was probably the personal statements. I would say the personal statements, I felt, because at this point it's like my marks are already out and they're there, and there's nothing that I could really do to change anything, that even if I wanted to change it, I couldn't. And so at this point, I had the personal statement that can help reflect me as a person. And that I could discuss maybe my passion or my experience or my past experiences or anything about me that I feel that would make me a good candidate for the programs. So I tried my best to put a lot of effort into the personal statements. It took me quite a long time, because within it's not just one personal statement. You kind of need to alter it just very slightly for some of the different programs that I'm applying to. So you're applying to some of, like, let's say Saskatchewan or Memorial University, which are in different provinces, they sometimes want to know, because their population is much smaller. So they want to know, why are you applying to our program? Why, like, what ties do you have to Saskatchewan, let's say, or Manitoba? What ties you to us? Why do you want to come here if you're not from here already? Just to kind of like explain and get, like, for them to kind of get a better idea of the candidate, and if the candidate, I guess, would fit into their program or not. Personal statement, I think, was a big one. Any other things that I think I put, I would say that was probably one of the most that I put kind of like emphasis on in my application. And as well as, of course, any activities, so any research, my CV, I think volunteer work, all of that, those are really important. And Canada really loves, they love to see like a well-rounded like applicant and candidate. So to really like dig up, because like there were even stuff that I had forgotten I had done. So like really try to dig up all of that, bring out your certificates, your awards, any research or presentations that you've done, any seminars you've attended, any events you've hosted in the past, or volunteer work. That's all really, really helpful. I would definitely also emphasize on.
Right. I think the conferences with the CMR points, credits, those also add up, if I'm not
Yes,
wrong.
of course. Yeah.
Okay.
Everything
Awesome.
adds up. Like you wouldn't even believe it.
Okay.
A big factor would also be for electives in Canada. I would say to try your best to get some clinical experience in Canada. I think that's really important. I don't know of too many people, so I'm sure there are people who have also matched without having much clinical experience in Canada. It's of course very possible. And since COVID, they've actually removed their requirements or their emphasis on like kind of wanting people to have Canadian experience because they understood during COVID. So I don't know if they're slowly going to bring that back. However, I know that they want to know that it'll be at least a smoother transition if you're somewhat familiar with the Canadian medical system. So doing some electives in Canada, I think would definitely really help as well.
Right. Okay. And the electives, as in the one after the course, or there are a lot of universities which encourage students to do electives during the summers as well. Would that also count in? Is that also possible? How is it like?
Yeah, so that's also great. Yes, for sure. Summer practicals, 100%. Like if you can get some, that's some stuff you can add to your CV. However, there's a specific section within the website, within the application that's specifically just for electives, which happen during your final year of medical school. So we're lucky, like at least I know in Poznan, the university allows us a semester abroad if we would like to, or anywhere we want to kind of do our electives. So I did manage to do 2 in the States and 2 in Canada, and I think that also really helped. It also helped me get a better idea of the areas and where I'm living, and I also that's where I got a better idea of what kind of specialty I want and the life that each specialty kind of brings. I guess I could say. But I think that during your final year, they will really kind of help shape you and help you decide what exactly you want to do and really narrow down the specialties to a certain extent.
Right. And with this elective process, like, do you already get like a training license or something which you apply there, or how was that like?
No, there's no training process. It's just like you're applying as a student, like as a medical student in their final year. In the States, I remember some of the universities had like requirements, like you'd have to maybe have passed step 1. But other than that, there's no license or anything that you needed, I think, to get that I'm aware of. The portal during my time for electives in Canada was still closed to any international students. But I believe that last year it finally opened up. So it's become a lot easier for students to be able to get electives in Canada.
Okay,
and it's just kind of like so it's pretty much just like 4-week rotations that you can do in, you're not meant to do them in the same specialty. So you can do 4 weeks of family medicine, 4 weeks of internal, maybe 4 weeks of emergency, 4 weeks of surgery, etc. So majority of them were 4-week programs, but they were meant to be in like separate specialties. And I think it's a nice way to kind of figure out what exactly you're interested in, and kind of like process of elimination, really.
Yes, of course. Okay. And I think now we'll go to the interview experience, right? So could you share your experiences with the interview process for residency programs in Canada? Like,
definitely stressful, but I think the moments leading up to it more stressful than the actual university. Some of them were as casual as just like saying hi and just having a nice casual conversation, slowly throwing in like questions about yourself and about the program and why you want family medicine, for instance, or why you want to come to their university. But they were honestly a lot less stressful than I made them out to be. Some of them could be more formal, but others were very informal and just kind of trying to have a chat, trying to get to know like who you are as a person, I think was the mainstay. So I feel like it's very true what people say is, okay, you got to the interview point, which means like they know like you are capable, you're a good candidate in terms of your medical knowledge. Now they just want to know how you are as a person. So it depends. I feel like you'll know ahead of time if the interview is going to be more formal and informal, just based off of previous candidates, what they've said. But majority of mine were very just more like casual conversations and just trying to get to know you as a person.
Sounds good.
For preparation, I was just going to say, I'm not sure if you asked me about the preparation, like how to prepare for it beforehand.
No, I asked you about your experience with the interview
Okay.
process.
Yes.
How was that? But I'm going to ask you, my next question is going to be about what advice would you give for students who are preparing for the residency interviews in Canada? So, as well go on with that. Yeah.
So I would say it differs from specialty to specialty. So I don't know how much I can really speak on the other ones, but for family medicine, I would say you kind of just have like it's mostly of like why you want to practice the specialty. Tell me who you are as a person, and just kind of some of the just to make sure you have like some examples of let's see, just at the top of my head, just kind of like talking about times that you were, let's say, put in a tough situation. How did you handle it? Like always kind of have like some examples about that. So they want to know, let's say a time you had a conflict, kind of like how you're able to, like a time you had a conflict with your peer, with your colleague, or maybe with a supervisor. How did you react to it? How did you respond? What did you do? So I feel like these were all like really good questions and ways that you could prepare. So to always have like a few examples and just to think of, I was honestly like YouTubing like interview questions, how to prepare, and just like any questions that I would find, just tried to prepare myself. And I found that in the end, by the end of my preparation, like there weren't really any questions during the interview that really caught me off guard.
Okay, perfect. That's nice. And I think it's more of comes also with experience. Like if we have done electives in a good previous and we have got some good amount of experience, then these kind of practical setting questions would be easier to answer. Like because we might have had our own
100%.
experience.
Yeah,
Right.
100%. So
Okay.
like I think the more practical experience you get, the more the ability of you being able to discuss even having like a difficult patient. How did you go on with it? Like such questions were also like part of my like samples of like how to prepare. And I think having those practical experiences during my electives, but also during school as well, of course, can really help shape you and like show you like, okay, try to remember like a time where maybe a patient is being a little difficult. How did you respond to it? What was happening? Tell me about this situation. So sometimes it can be hard because you really have to dig deep, because some of these like you kind of forget like this has happened. Like for me, like I would have completely forgotten. I'd be like sticking to a question, like unable to think of like how to answer it for like a few days, and then eventually like, it would come to me. I'm like, oh, like this happened once, and like you can find a way to discuss it as well. But 100% the practicals and the electives I think are really important, and a great way for you to kind of like see life as a physician.
Yeah. Yes. And now moving on towards the end of the podcast, I would like to ask you what advice would you offer to the medical students considering the application for residency in Canada? Like, what is your advice? Like, what's your take on the entire thing? Like for the aspiring medical students.
My advice is don't worry, take a breath. It's going to be okay.
Okay.
It's easier said than done, of course, and I know it's a very stressful situation, but like just take it one step at a time. Just like worry about the current like problem at hand. So just worry about like first of all your programs and the applications, worry about having your documents. And then once that's done and that's set, then like move on to step 2 and everything. So just take it one step at a time and breathe. Don't worry about it, like everything's gonna be okay. Everyone has their own pace and everything will work out the way that it's meant to be.
Right. And I'm sure you have given a lot of tips to the students who are willing to get into Canada. But anything in specific, any strategy which you would say, any tips which you'd have, like to give specifically to the aspiring medical
Um,
students?
yes, the clinical experience in Canada, I think, is pretty important. The States, like any experience in the States, I think also helps, but it's, I think, very important for clinical experience, for specifically in Canada too. It also helps, like that way you can get some references from Canada. Uh, Even volunteer work, I think, is really important, just to show them what else you've done outside of school. Like they want to know, like, are you well rounded? They even activities like sports, anything that you're interested in, any hobbies, all of that stuff. Even research, I think, could be very beneficial. Don't worry about it if you don't have any publications, like that's okay. But like even just kind of
Mm-hmm.
joining, like we mentioned before, like going to a seminar, like a research
Mm-hmm.
presentation, anything like that. Like you don't necessarily have to be published for it to be included under like research or scholarly activities. So just
Okay.
take part in like school activities, associations and stuff like that. And that's, I think
Right.
that's the most that you can do. And then like you've done your part, you've done everything. And like, it's now, it's just like kind of time to like put it all down in paper now, but like, just like to do whatever you can really. Yeah.
Right, right. I get that. Yes.
Mhm.
Now, looking back at your entire journey, like from medical school all the way up here, what is that you would say yourself? Like, say you looking back, okay,
Mhm.
looking at a second-year-old Rita, okay, what would you suggest her? What would you tell her? What is that something which you think would would be a good suggestion for her? What can she improve in? And I have another sub question to this, which I'll get to after you answer this. Yeah.
I think what I would tell like younger me back in medical school is um, to just kind of go at your own pace. Something that's really big is just like feeling the pressure of seeing everyone and thinking that you're behind, like you're not behind. Don't worry about what everyone else is doing. Don't worry about needing to catch up, or if you feel like you're behind or anything like that. Just like take your own time. Like everything will come when it's ready to come. You'll write your exams when you need to write your exams. Like don't rush anything. Take your time. Make sure you're ready for it. Make sure that you're able. Like you don't want to have any regrets when it comes to exams too. Unfortunately, like most of the board exams, like it's just a one-time thing. Like once you pass it, and you can't change your mark. So don't feel the need to like have to write the exam because everyone else has written it and like, oh, what am I going to do then? Don't worry about it. Just take your time. You'll have your own pace and it'll all work out that way. That's, I think, the main
Okay.
advice I would give to younger self.
Okay. And when you say younger self, it could be a second year, it could be a fourth year, it could be a sixth year, but
It could be
all of them,
anyone, yeah. Like even in your sixth year, like
anyone.
don't think that you're
Okay.
behind because you don't know what you're gonna do next year because you haven't applied to match, or that's okay. Like there were a lot of people. You'd be surprised how many people are also feeling the exact same way that you are. You're really not alone. You might feel like you are. You might see that everyone kind of has a plan and a goal, and you don't know what you want to do yet. But you'll get there, and like you're also not alone. Like I'm sure if you really talk to a few other people that are around you. Like a lot of people are scared and they're not unsure and they don't know what they're going to do. So that goes for from first year till your final year till graduation till after post graduation. It doesn't matter. Like you'll find your time. Like just take a deep breath and like just try your best to find your path.
Yes, I think that's a great advice. And
Mm-hmm.
like you were mentioning before in this answer itself, like we mentioned before, I think it reminded me of something which my professor said after my exit exams in the preclinical years. Uh, she said that any task has to be broken down first, and that's how you accomplish it. You can't do anything at once. You can't swallow up anything at once. You have to break it down and go step by step. So I think what you were mentioning was something very similar to this, like any kind of a
100%.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So that's great. And thank you very much for your time. And I think
Thank you
this
so much.
information is going to help a lot of students. It's going to clear up a lot of inhibitions. It's going to, because for, I think, because I am in fourth year, and I see my seniors who are in fifth and sixth year pretty stressed about their further like future plans and the path in which they're going to go, because it's pretty dark and a mystery for most of them until unless they don't get in touch with people like you. I think there's no information about these kind of things out there, and it isn't very simplified. It's been given in a very simplified way. So thank you so much for all the
For
information
sure.
which you have shared today,
For sure,
and
thank
your
you. And
time as well.
if I didn't answer any of the questions fully, or if there's any misunderstanding, like anyone is free to also reach out to me. Because sometimes I can blabble off and then realize I didn't answer a question. So if that did happen at all,
Mhm.
and there's any confusion, like anyone can feel free to reach out and ask me any questions as well in the future.
Sure, and I think after this, if depending on the response and depending on the demand, I think we're probably gonna call you again back on this podcast probably
Okay.
to answer all of them who are out there. Yeah, so we're gonna look out for that, and you gotta watch out
I'll
for it.
answer the
Yeah,
next
you're gonna give us the time.
the next
Yes.
podcast. I'll
Probably
answer
there's a
more
part 2 to it.
efficiently. Okay,
Yes,
sounds
of
good.
course.
Well, thank you so much for having
Great
me.
then. Thank
Okay.
you so much.